What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a Monday edition of Coming Off the Bench. How are we all feeling? How are we all doing today? We got a huge show to talk about. We got the Browns Titans. We're going to be recapping that again. Shedeur Sanders with his breakout performance against the Titans. Did he show enough to warrant him coming back for 2026 and maybe starting for the Cleveland Browns in 2026? Do the Browns go after a quarterback in the draft in 2026? We're going to be talking about that as well. But before we get into the show, I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Monday or whenever you guys are watching this show. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe if you are new. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're at 971 right now. You guys have been absolutely killing it with the support. So if you have not hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. Help us out on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And hit the like button to help us out in the algorithm. Gets more eyeballs and views here on the channel and on the show. Okay, everybody. So let's talk about the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans game yesterday because, oh boy, this game yesterday probably was the lowest point in the Kevin Stefanski Cleveland Browns era. It was the first time where you could probably say, and I know that a lot of people are going to be saying that I was here before anyone else and blah, 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 blah. And that, that a lot of people were living in fantasy land and we all saw that Kevin Stefanski is not a good head coach. But yesterday to me felt like it was the first time that many people in the Browns fandom really saw how bad Kevin Stefanski has gotten as a head coach and a play caller, and how bad that the Cleveland Browns have gotten as a culture. And, you saw it from the first play of the game, right? The special teams under Bubba Ventrone give up a huge kick return to set up the Tennessee Titans at around the 45-yard line. They have a short field to work with. They go easily down the field against one of the best defenses in the league, and Tennessee's the worst offense in the league. And this team looked like they could give two craps. They looked like they did not care. And they felt like this was going to be an easy game against the worst offense in the league. And it showed. And to me, that implies coaching. Coaching is when you take a day off, or if you're taking plays off, that's a sign that coaches are not on you. You don't fear getting, reprimanded by your coaches if you're taking plays off. Now, I don't know if Stefanski is supposed to be the one that reprimands him. I don't know if Jim Schwartz is supposed to be the one that reprimands him. I don't know, okay? But to me, the culture that has been set up by Stefanski has been showing itself to be lackluster for the vast majority of his time here in Cleveland. They are not, the whole thing is supposed to be smart, tough, accountable. They don't play smart, they're not that tough, and they don't hold each other accountable because we have the same issues over and over and over again. It's the same issues that we've been seeing for the last 6 years, and the vast majority of it is because of the head coach. The play calling is still abysmal, no matter who you put out there, whether it's Tommy Rees, whether it's Ken Dorsey, ever since Alex Van Pelt left mysteriously. And again, supposedly it wasn't Kevin Stefanski's call to let Alex Van Pelt go. It was someone higher up to tell him to let him go and to bring in Ken Dorsey to help Deshaun Watson in, right? Whoever made the decision to let Alex Van Pelt go, that was a very bad decision. It was a worse decision that you could possibly imagine. So now we've been stuck with the last 2 years of a horrible offense, a head coach who has given up play calling duties, who's supposed to be an offensive savant, an offensive guru, who's given up play calling duties twice in a row in 2 years, and to add it on top, add injury to insult, this year was supposed to be the year that he implements his offensive scheme again that you had success with earlier on in his career. So, again, when we see the Cleveland Browns lose not only to the Tennessee Titans, who are the worst team in the league, But going a few weeks back to the New York Jets, who were the worst team in the league at that time. You lost to the New York Jets, who were a one-win team at the time. You lost to the Tennessee Titans, who were a one-win team at the time yesterday. And if I'm Jimmy Haslam, there's no way in hell that this is acceptable, and there's no way in hell that he gets brought back another year. There's just no way. And again, I keep referencing Mike Jones's article from The Athletic a few weeks ago. We talked about it here on the channel. You guys can go back and watch it. Every single scenario that Mike Jones at The Athletic came out with, and from him talking to a bunch of other GMs and a bunch of other executives over at the Browns facility and around the NFL, they kept talking about there is a growing sense around the league that Jimmy Haslam is going to either fire both Stefanski and Barry, or Stefanski is going to be the lone man out. And Barry's going to come back, and Barry is going to hire a head coach that he can work with and that he thinks can have success with this roster that he's building, okay? There has been no mention. Even the Jeremy Fowler article that we talked about too the other day on Friday, even that article didn't mention a scenario where Kevin Stefanski comes back to the Cleveland Browns. Nothing. No article, no insider from ESPN, The Athletic, no Fox Sports. There's been nothing. Nothing. No article, no NFL GM has said, no, I think Kevin Stefanski can salvage his relationship with the Cleveland Browns. By all intents and purposes, Kevin Stefanski is going to get fired at the end of this year. I said this yesterday on the postgame show. Yesterday was the first time where you could very much see the possibility that Stefanski is gone at the end of this year. And yesterday's game against the Tennessee Titans and the performance that he had, the performance that the team had, and the effort, the lackluster effort that they showed was the final nail in his coffin in terms of him getting fired at the end of this year. Now, I don't know who the Browns go after. There's a couple names that you can go after, but the Browns keep doing this same cycle and song and dance all over again. We fire a coach, and then we try and go after the hot and up-and-coming, new coordinator, new offensive guru that's coming out, and they don't have any head coaching experience. A lot of people, I made a video again, a lot of people are talking about Clint Kubiak from Seattle with, who's been having success with Sam Darnold up there. Maybe, right? We could go after a guy like that. You could also maybe see Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh getting fired at the end of this year. I probably say Harbaugh more than Tomlin has a shot to get fired this year, because I don't think the Rooneys are going to fire Tomlin. I just don't see it. I think they're way too married to consistency is key in Pittsburgh. But Harbaugh, I think, could actually be on the market this year. So maybe you go after an established and proven head coach in John Harbaugh at the end of this year. But for all intents and purposes, this game against the Tennessee Titans was the final straw. And it hits a new low. And again, why I put this on the Chiron here, it hit a new low because this was the first time in the Kevin Stefanski era, for me personally, where Kevin did not look any different than any of the previous Browns head coaches. Before we could say, yeah, Kevin, you know what? He's not that great of an offensive coordinator. He's not that great of an offensive game planner. He has some struggles. He does some things wonky. But he's not like these other guys where, you know what? At least the team plays hard. At least the team shows up sometimes. And you know what? They can snag victories out of the jaws of defeat sometimes, which other Browns coaches and teams haven't been able to do. Yesterday was the first time that I could not see a difference in what this Browns team in 2025 looks like and plays like versus what a team that a 2014, 2013 Cleveland Browns team looked like. It looked like the exact same type of football being played in 2025 like we saw it back in like the Pat Shurmur days. It was that almost that bad. And again, when you've got the locker room is starting to untether. I'm gonna show you a clip here in a second. The players are starting to talk. The players are starting to talk now. And you've got Shedeur Sanders even calling Stefanski out now. Even Shedeur Sanders is calling Stefanski out in the post-game press conferences saying, we do all this stuff in practice, it doesn't work in practice, and we still do it in the games. He doesn't understand it. I'll play you guys this clip right now. This is from the post-game press conference from Shedeur Sanders. And the post is from ML Football. He goes, Sanders, we practiced something and we execute it. We didn't seem to this day. And it's Tony Grossi he's talking to. Did it work in practice? Shedeur, nah, we just called it in the game and it didn't work out in practice. Let's listen to what Shedeur had to say about that 2-point conversion with Quinshon Judkins.
If I'm out there any play, I would always have the ball in my hand, but that's not what football is. Sometimes you got to run the ball. Sometimes you got to kick a field goal. Everything. That's the game. That's the most important thing is the ball. So in any situation, of course you would want to, but I know we practiced something and we executed it in practice, and we just didn't seem to this day. So I would never go against, kind of like what the call was or anything.
Did it work in practice?
No, we just called it in the game and it didn't work in practice. I don't think you call plays in a game that didn't work in practice.
I mean,
if
again, I don't know what you say. I don't know what you say about that. That is insane. To me, at least. We haven't heard Shedeur Sanders say that before. We've heard a guy like Myles Garrett say something like, we do these things in practice, or we're not executing, yet we're still doing the same thing. We've heard him say that before. But when you got Shedeur Sanders coming out here basically saying it's not, working in practice, and yet we're still calling it in the games, and it didn't work out in the games either. He's joking around with Tony Grossi about the failures of implementing the game plan in practice and for it, it not working out in the game. That's an issue. That is an issue. That's the issue right there. And again, we go Kevin Stefanski's at the podium yesterday too in the post game. They're asking questions. Jeff Shedeur, Tony Grossi, Mary Kay Cap, they're all asking questions about the 2-point conversions back to back. And he's doing his typical dancing around the question. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but you can put that one on me. And then they're not taking no for an answer this time. Usually they take that for an answer. They let him dance around the question. For the first time, I felt like the media in Cleveland was finally going after Stefanski. Basically saying, no, you can't dance yourself out of this, man. What happened? What were you thinking in these two scenarios? There is a culture shift that has happened after this game that I have not seen in the Kevin Stefanski era. And to me, when you have all these different reports coming out about Stefanski's job security, when you have the performance of this team throughout the entire season, but most notably from yesterday and from the Jets game, you've got a guy who is not long for being the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. All of the signs point to that. I've been saying this on the show for many weeks at this point. I showed you all the articles. I've given you guys my points. I've said this pretty much when he gave up play calling duties earlier this season to Tommy Rees before the Jets game. I said, this feels like he's going to get fired. There's no way that you can give up play calling duties on what's supposed to be your offense and expect that you're going to survive, being the head coach. So yesterday was the final nail in the coffin for Kevin Stefanski. I think it was the turning point for this team. I think it was the turning point for Kevin Stefanski. And I think if you're Andrew Berry, even, this is a turning point because the quarterback that you wanted, Shedeur Sanders, supposedly that you wanted, went out there yesterday, threw for over 360 yards, and was responsible for 4 touchdowns, and you still lost. All the players that you got in the draft last year, Quinshon Judkins played good. Dylan Sampson had some good moments up until that fumble. Harold Fannin Jr. showed out. Schlesinger played good. Mason Graham played. Tyson Campbell trade looked good. He has had a great year. And the guys that he has picked and that he has wanted have been having success in the NFL. But with all the reports that have said Kevin Stefanski wanted Dillon Gabriel, do you think Dillon Gabriel could go out there and do what Shedeur did yesterday? No, absolutely not. And yet, for some reason, we had to waste 6 weeks with Dillon Gabriel as the starting quarterback when Shedeur Sanders could have come in and maybe, instead of being 3-10, you could be, 5-8? It's not great, but at least it would have been better than what we got under Dillon Gabriel. And again, I think it points to Kevin Stefanski not being long as for a head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And I think there's going to be changes coming in the next 4 weeks, but we'll stay tuned and see what's going to go and happen with the next 4 weeks. January is going to be a fun month, man. It's going to be a fun month. Stefanski may get fired, and January 15th and the 22nd, we'll see which one of these college quarterbacks or whatever comes out and declares for the draft or decide to go back to school. It's going to be an interesting month next month, man. But make sure you guys hit the like button. Subscribe here if you guys have not hit subscribe yet. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. I appreciate it. Burlography says, so tired of this team. I agree, man. Thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Monday morning. I appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. And whenever you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Let's get on to the second and final segment of the day, shall we? We'll go talk about Shedeur. Because there's a lot of storylines to talk about with Shedeur. Okay. Burlography also says, always fun January for the Browns. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, next month it's going to be crazy. If all the reports are true and it's either going to be both of them are gone or Stefanski's gone, either one, it's going to be insane. So it's going to be an interesting month next month. All right, let's get on to Shedeur. So, outside of Kevin Stefanski probably getting fired and putting the final nail in his coffin yesterday, Shedeur Sanders should have been the biggest story out of this Browns game yesterday. Now, the completion percentage is not great. 23 of 42, not great, but 360 yards, over 360 yards of passing, almost 400 yards total through the air, almost 400 yards of total offense from Shedeur Sanders, 4 touchdowns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground, and 1 interception. He's the first Browns quarterback since the 50s to have over 300 yards passing, a touchdown through the air, a rushing touchdown since 1950. Insane, right? Historic game from Shedeur Sanders. And to me, and a lot of other people, a lot of people are hailing this game as the breakout game for Shedeur Sanders, which it was. But they're also pointing out, is this the time where the Browns look at Shedeur Sanders and what his performance was yesterday and rubber stamp him in as the starting quarterback in 2026? And a lot of people on Twitter, especially Shedeur fans, were saying that, Shedeur should be the starting quarterback because of what he did against the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to say this, and I think it's a very nuanced topic. I think it's a very nuanced debate. I know a lot of people are not going to like that, because a lot of people want you to either say, Shedeur, yes, obviously Shedeur should be the starting quarterback next year for 2026, or obviously no, he shouldn't be the starting quarterback for 2026. Shedeur Sanders, I think, career-wise, could be a Jacoby Brissett. And I'm not making that as like an insult or anything like that. Jacoby Brissett is a very good spot starter for an NFL team. We saw it here in Cleveland when he was playing for us for 11 games. He played good enough to get the Browns a winning record. He was not the Browns were 4-7 when they turned the football over to Deshaun Watson when he came back. The Browns were not a 4-7 football team. Kevin Stefanski had a top 5 offense with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is a good quarterback. The thing about Shedeur, do I think Shedeur Sanders is a elite quarterback? No. Do I think he's an awful quarterback? No. I think he is a fine quarterback. I think he's got some talent and some traits that you can obviously work with. He has shown that he can have some success throwing the football and playing in the NFL. And to me, this whole thing about did he prove enough to be the starter in 2026 is kind of a moot point, because we still have 4 games left. Now, if he decides, or not even decides, if he is able to replicate what he did against the, what he did against the Titans to like the Bills or to the Steelers, if he can play like this for the next 4 games, or even if he can do this again against one of these next 4 games, then you can say, okay, maybe there's something there. But to me, I don't know if the Browns are going to change their game plan around the 2026 draft just because of what Shedeur did against the Tennessee Titans. And I hate to poo-poo on everyone's parade, but the Tennessee Titans are not a good football team. They don't have a good defense. It's fine. He was great. He was great yesterday. I am not taking that away from him. I am not saying that Shedeur Sanders is not good. I'm not taking that away from him, but we have to call a spade a spade. The Tennessee Titans are not a good football team. They're not. Shedeur had a lot of success against the Tennessee Titans. That is great. I'm happy for him. I was very happy to see him play really well yesterday. My only thing is I need to see more of that. That needs to happen maybe one more time this year. Because to me, the whole game plan for the Cleveland Browns and Andrew Berry was in the 2025 draft. We're going to trade down, accumulate draft picks, because in 2026, the QB class is going to be better than it was last year with Cam Ward and Shedeur and Jackson Dart and Dylan Gabriel. 2026 is going to be better, right? And they went into the season with that mindset. I don't know if they've changed their mind from that mindset. Even with what Shedeur did yesterday, I don't think Andrew Berry is going to change his mind from that. Now, it's up to Shedeur himself to come out here with the next 4 games to try and rubber stamp his name into the mix next year. I don't think he's going to get traded or cut or anything like that next year or in this offseason. I don't think that's going to happen. But to me, I think the Browns are in a position right now where they're 4th in the draft right now. If Las Vegas wins another game, then they're ahead. We're ahead. We're number 3. Because right now, it's Tennessee, New York, Vegas, and then the Browns in terms of the draft order. Vegas obviously needs a quarterback. They're probably going to take a quarterback. The Tennessee Titans, I don't think they take a quarterback. They probably take Reuben Bain. The Giants probably take a receiver or maybe even take Caleb Downs in the draft. I don't know. But the Browns right now are in a position to take one of these quarterbacks here at the top, whether it's Fernando Mendoza, whether it's Dante Moore. I think Ty Simpson goes back to school another year. But to me, I don't think Andrew Berry is going to change his position or his plan for the 2026 draft just because of what Shedeur did against the Tennessee Titans. If Shedeur comes out here and throws for 327 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks or 1 pick against the Buffalo Bills, okay, yeah. Then you can start having discussions about Shedeur being the starter next year, and then you fill the roster out with extra talent instead of taking a quarterback with one of your first picks, right? Totally fine with that. But Shedeur has got to do this at least one more time this season before I think he can maybe cause a little bit of doubt in Andrew Berry's plan, whether he takes a quarterback with his first pick or whether he takes a flyer on a guy like Drew Aller or Cade Klubnik in like the later rounds, right? Or maybe even Darian Mensah if he comes out this year. I just feel like, to me, there again, like with a lot of the Shedeur Sanders conversation, there is a lot of hyperbolic stuff being thrown out where many people want him to be the starting quarterback. I understand that. But he had one good game against a really bad team. A very good game. Great game. Historic game. Not taking anything away from Shedeur Sanders and the success that he had with the game yesterday. But seeing this through the lens and the framing of Andrew Berry and the Browns, I just think Shedeur needs to do this more with the next 4 games than to try and make a case for himself to be the starter next year. And then, who knows? Maybe he still does this and he plays like he did against the Tennessee Titans the next 4 games, and then the Browns still take a quarterback, and then they have a quarterback competition between Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, and you have Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, and they're all competing against one another to try and get the starting job, right? Who knows? I don't know. But again, seeing this through the lens of Andrew Berry, it's going to be very, very, very tough for Shedeur Sanders to try and change the plan that Andrew Berry has had for a year or so with the Browns and setting themselves up to try and get a quarterback in this upcoming draft. Now, if you're gonna ask me and say who would you rather have? Would you rather have Fernando Mendoza or would you rather have Shedeur Sanders? Me personally, I lean towards Mendoza just because he's 6'5", he's more athletic than Shedeur, and he's got a better arm. Okay, to me, and he's played against way better competition in college than Shedeur had ever played against at Colorado. That's just pure fact. You don't need to look at box scores. I understand that a lot of people are going to be looking at box scores and say he hasn't thrown for a 300-yard game in college this year. I understand that, but he's beaten top 10 teams multiple times. He beat Ohio State, who has one of the best defenses of all time in college on Saturday. He has cemented himself as a very good quarterback, okay? So, personally for me, I would have Fernando Mendoza on this team over Shedeur Sanders. I think he's a better quarterback for me personally. And Shedeur's going to have to change my mind on that. I think he is a good backup. Like I said, I see him as like a Jacoby Brissett type of quarterback where you can put him in spot starts if your main quarterback is out, if they're hurt, and you need a guy to come in for 2 or 3 weeks and play pretty consistently and like not shit the bed. then Shedeur Sanders is your guy. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be very good at that. I think he can be a Jacoby Brissett in this league or an Andy Dalton or whoever. I think he can be a very good type of quarterback like that. But if you're saying to me, Shedeur Sanders can take a team to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, I don't see it. I can see a guy like Fernando Mendoza doing it just because he has had success everywhere he's gone, from Cal to Indiana, and he has beaten numerous top 10 teams this season. He's played against very much better competition than Shedeur Sanders has played. And the knock on Shedeur coming out of college was that he didn't play well against good teams. He didn't play well against good defenses. Fernando Mendoza has played very well, okay? And again, if I'm thinking like that, I can only imagine what Andrew Berry is thinking right now in terms of his game plan with the 2026 draft. So again, I understand a lot of people are going to be upset with what I'm saying. A lot of Shedeur fans are going to be upset with what I'm saying. Please do not get it twisted. I think Shedeur Sanders is a good quarterback. He can be a good quarterback. But I just don't think that Andrew Berry is going to change his plans for the 2026 draft because Shedeur Sanders had a great game against the Tennessee Titans, who are the worst team in the NFL. I just don't think that's going to be the case. But I could be wrong. Maybe Shedeur Sanders has done enough to Andrew Berry to warrant, Shedeur being the starting quarterback next year. I don't know. But to me, if it was my decision and I could say I'd rather have Mendoza, that's what I would do, okay? But that's just my opinion. You guys can let me know in the comments or in the chat what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Monday or whenever you guys are watching this on YouTube. I really appreciate your guys' support. Okay. Biography. Only one black quarterback has won a Super Bowl. Okay. Jalen Hurts, I'm assuming. Well, no. There's been multiple quarterbacks who've done that. Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson are biracial. It doesn't... I don't know what race has to do with winning a Super Bowl. I don't know about that, but okay. Cool. I don't know what race has to do with winning a Super Bowl. I don't think that's a good argument. For who your quarterback should be, I don't think that's a good argument. If it's because, black quarterbacks don't win the Super Bowl as much, I don't like that argument. That's not football. But I appreciate the comments and the engagement. All right, guys. We're going to be getting out of here. Thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Monday morning or whenever you guys are watching on YouTube. Hit the like button. Helps us out in the algorithm. Gets us going in the algorithm. Gets us going to more people, more eyeballs here on the channel. Hit the subscribe button if you have not hit subscribe yet. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're at 971 right now. We're super, super, super close. We're 29 subscribers away. So only 29. Only 29 of you. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, you can be one of 29. All right? I know 29 of you are watching, okay? 29 of you who haven't hit subscribe yet. Hit the subscribe button, man. Come on. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. What are you doing here? What are we doing? Come on. 29. It's 29 of you. What are you doing? It just takes one little second, one little click. Boom. Subscribe. 29. All right? We're very close. All right, guys. We're going to be getting out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, like, subscribe. We'll see you guys all Wednesday at 11 a.m. A little bit more early shows just because of my work schedule. So, what do you call it? 11 a.m. Wednesday morning. We'll see you guys all for coming off the bench. I'll see you guys